I was carrying a box of winter clothes to the car when my phone buzzed on the hood. I almost didn't check it. I thought it was my sister reminding me about the potluck in March, which she'd been texting about since November. But something made me set the box down and look. It was my son-in-law. Just wanted to confirm. Adele's already told the whole family you're doing Christmas dinner this year. Everyone's excited. Should be about 28 people. Let me know if you need anything. I stood there in the driveway in my coat, holding my phone, reading it 3 times. 28 people. Already told everyone. Let me know if you need anything. I typed back the most peaceful sentence I had written in 63 years of living. That's news to me. I'll be in Muskoka until the 27th. Merry Christmas. Then I put the phone in my coat pocket, picked up the box, and put it in the trunk. I should tell you who I am before I tell you what happened next. My name is Eleanor. I am 64 years old. I live in a 3-bedroom house in Oakville, Ontario, about 40 minutes from Toronto, depending on the 403. I have 2 daughters. My older daughter, Adele, is 38. She lives about 12 minutes away with her husband, Trevor, and their 2 kids. My younger daughter, Petra, moved to Vancouver 6 years ago and calls me every Sunday without fail. I was married for 31 years. My husband passed away 4 years ago in October. Pancreatic cancer. He was gone in 8 weeks from diagnosis. Some things in life do not give you time to prepare, and that was one of them. After he passed, I kept the house. It was paid off. We had been careful people. My husband was an engineer. I had worked in hospital administration for 22 years before taking early retirement. We had RRSPs, a modest TFSA, no debt. We had planned to travel when he retired. We were going to start with the Maritimes and then go to Scotland, where his grandmother had been from. We never got to do any of it. So 4 years later, I was standing in my driveway with a box of winter clothes and a text from my son-in-law telling me I was hosting Christmas dinner for 28 people. Nobody had asked me. That is the part I want you to understand. Not that I was asked and said yes and then changed my mind. I was never asked. The decision was made, announced to the extended family, and I was informed as a courtesy. I drove to Muskoka that afternoon as planned. I have a small cottage up there. It belonged to my husband's family originally, and his parents left it to us when they passed. It is nothing fancy. A 2-bedroom place on a small lake, about 2.5 hours north of Oakville. No dishwasher, heating that takes 40 minutes to get going properly in winter, a dock that needs replacing. I love it more than almost any place on earth. I had booked the week between December 19th and 27th for myself. Alone. On purpose. It was the first time since my husband died that I had planned a full week away without organizing my schedule around anyone else's needs. I had stacked firewood in October. I had a box of books. I had bought a very good bottle of scotch and a bag of those clementines that come in the little wooden crate. My phone was ringing by the time I crossed the city limits. It was Adele. I let it ring. She called 4 more times before I was cell range, which happens somewhere around Barrie. I turned the radio on and listened to CBC the rest of the way up. The cottage was cold when I got there, the way it always is when it's been sitting. I got the propane fireplace going first, then the baseboard heaters, then put the kettle on. I unpacked my groceries. I made toast. I sat in the armchair by the window and watched the lake, which was frozen at the edges but still open in the middle, and I didn't think about Christmas at all. That night, I turned the phone back on. 17 missed calls. 4 from Adele, 2 from Trevor, and 11 from various aunts, cousins, and my sister-in-law Barb, who I love dearly but who treats any family disruption like a civic emergency. I read the texts instead of listening to the voicemails because I am not young enough to have patience for voicemails anymore. Adele, call me. Adele, Mom, what does Muskoka until the 27th mean? You didn't mention this, Trevor. Hi, Eleanor, just wanted to touch base. Adele is a bit upset. Can you call when you get a chance? Adele, Mom, everyone is asking me what's happening and I don't know what to tell them. You committed to this. I read that last one twice. You committed to this. I had committed to nothing. Not a single thing. No one had asked me to commit to anything. But there it was in a text message, matter of fact, like it was simply true. That is when I understood what was actually happening. It was not a misunderstanding. It was not a lapse in communication. My daughter had told 27 other people a thing that was not true, and now, because 27 people believed it, it was supposed to become true retroactively. By volume, by social pressure, because backing out would cause disruption. Except I had never been in. I called Adele back at 9 o'clock that night. I was sitting by the fire with my scotch. I want to be honest with you. I was not entirely calm. My heart was going a little faster than I would have liked. But my voice was steady. "Hi, Mom." She sounded relieved and braced at the same time. "Where are you?" "I'm at the cottage," I said. "Where I told you I'd be. You didn't mention you were going this week." "Shh." "I did, actually. I told you in November. You said you had the kids' school concert that Friday, so you couldn't come up with me." I heard her take a breath. "Adele, who told you I was hosting Christmas dinner?" A pause. "I thought we talked about it." "We didn't," I said. "We talked about how last year's dinner was too much for me. We talked about the 3 weeks it took me to recover from hosting 22 people at Thanksgiving. We talked about how I was planning to take this year slowly." I kept my voice even. "At no point did I say I would do Christmas dinner for 28 people. It's only 28 if the Hendersons come, and they might not. A deal." She went quiet. "I'm asking you a direct question," I said. "Did I ever say yes to hosting Christmas dinner this year?" The pause went on long enough that I already knew the answer. "I thought you'd be okay with it," she finally said. "You always do it. You love doing it." I sat back in my chair. Outside, through the window, I could see snow starting to come down, light and unhurried, the flakes catching the light from the cottage porch. "I used to love doing it," I said. "When your father was here and we did it together, yes, I loved it. It was our thing. But I have been doing it alone for 4 years, and last year I told you it was too much, and I meant it." "Mom," her voice shifted, went softer and more careful, in a way I recognized. "Everyone's already made plans. People have booked flights. Aunt Barb is driving in from Sudbury." "I know," I said, "and I'm very sorry that's difficult, but I didn't tell them to do that." "You're really going to leave us with nothing? On Christmas?" I looked at the fire for a moment before I answered. "I'm going to be at this cottage until the 27th, I said. "That is my plan. I am not leaving anyone with nothing. I am just not hosting a dinner I was never asked to host." She started to cry. I want to be truthful about that. It was real crying, not performed crying. She was genuinely upset, and it hurt to hear, because she is my daughter, and I love her, and I have spent 38 years trying to make sure she was okay. But I stayed on the line, and I did not change what I said. We talked for another 20 minutes. It went in circles a few times. She said I was punishing the family. I said I was keeping a plan I had made for myself. She said I was being selfish. I said I disagreed. She said the kids were expecting Grandma's Christmas. I said Grandma was at the cottage and they were welcome to come visit after the 27th, and I would make waffles and we would do gifts then, just the 4 of us. By the end of the call, she had stopped crying. She wasn't warm, but she was calmer. Trevor called back 11 minutes later. Trevor is not a bad person. I want to be fair to him. He works hard, he is good to my grandchildren, and in 15 years of being married to my daughter, he has never once said a rude word to me directly. But he has a particular way of handling things that I can only describe as corporate. He approaches family problems like a project manager who needs to get everyone to the same deliverable by a fixed deadline. "Eleanor," he said, "I think there's been a misunderstanding here." "I don't think there has been," I said pleasantly. Adele thought, and I think she thought this in good faith, that you were on board with this. I understand she thought that. I'm explaining that I wasn't. "The thing is," he said, "at this point, with everyone already planning, the cost of everyone changing their plans is pretty significant. Flights, hotels. The Hendersons already bought non-refundable train tickets from Winnipeg." "Trevor," I said. I don't know how to be any clearer. I did not agree to this. I understand there are consequences for people who made plans based on something I never said. That is genuinely unfortunate. But I'm not sure how my cooking dinner for 28 people fixes the problem of people making plans I never agreed to. There was a pause. What would it take, he said slowly, for you to be willing to do this? I thought about that question for a moment because I wanted to answer it honestly. I would need someone to actually ask me, I said. Not tell me, not inform me, ask me, and the answer would be no because I'm at the cottage, but I want you to understand the difference. Another pause. Then, I hear you, Eleanor. He did not sound like he heard me. He sounded like he was recalibrating. Can I ask, he said, what about the house? If we organized everything ourselves, catering, setup, cleanup, could we use the house? You'd be at the cottage, the house would just be sitting there. I set my glass down on the side table. No, I said. It would only be for one day. No, Trevor or Eleanor. My house is not available, I said. I'll be in touch when I'm back. And I said goodbye and I hung up. I did not sleep well that night. I want to be honest about that too, because this story is not about a woman who set a limit and felt nothing. I lay in bed in the cottage bedroom with the radiator clicking and the snow outside, and I thought about all of it. The years of Christmases, the turkey that took 4 hours, the stuffing my husband uses to with sage and apple, which I have never been able to replicate exactly. The year Adele was 7 and couldn't sleep on Christmas Eve and came out to find me in the kitchen at 2 in the morning getting ahead on the prep. And she sat on the counter in her pajamas and helped me peel carrots. I thought about those things, and I missed my husband so much that for a few minutes I couldn't breathe properly. And then I thought about last Christmas. I thought about being on my feet for 12 hours. I thought about the 3 weeks afterward where my back ached and I didn't feel like eating. I thought about how no one called to say thank you until almost New Year's. I thought about being 63 years old, alone in the kitchen at 11:30 at night, washing the last pan, and the house already empty. I fell asleep eventually. In the morning, things had escalated. My sister-in-law Barb had texted at 11:15 the night before. Eleanor, honey, Adele mentioned there might be a change of plans? Everything okay. Don't want to drive 8 hours for nothing lol, but also hope you're all right. My husband's cousin Phyllis, who I barely speak to 11 months of the year, had texted, heard Christmas might be canceled. Is everything okay with the house? And there was a text from a number I didn't recognize that turned out to be my son-in-law's mother, Diane, whom I have met perhaps 4 times. Hi, Eleanor. This is Diane, Trevor's mom. Just wanted to reach out. We were so looking forward to the gathering. I hope everything is okay on your end. These things happen. Families go through things. Happy to chat if helpful. I put the phone face down on the kitchen table and made oatmeal. The one text I had been waiting for from Adele did not come until late morning. No call, just a text. Mom, I need to tell you something, and I didn't know how to say it on the phone last night. I know I shouldn't have told everyone without asking you first. I know that. I convinced myself you wouldn't mind because you've always done it and you're so good at it, and I didn't want to have to figure out an alternative. That was wrong, and I'm sorry. But I also need you to know that I'm scared. I'm scared that since Dad died, you're pulling away from all of us. You spend more time at that cottage alone than you do with us. You've turned down 2 trips with me. You didn't come to Evan's school play. I feel like I'm losing you too, and I don't know how to say that except like this, and I know it came out wrong. I read that text standing at the kitchen window with my oatmeal going cold in the bowl. I read it 3 times, and then I sat down at the kitchen table, and I thought for a long while. Because there was something real in what she said, buried inside something that was still not okay. Both things were true at the same time. She had done something wrong, and she was also telling me something I needed to hear. My husband had been the person who held our extended family together. He was the one who made the calls, organized the weekends, remembered the birthdays, showed up. When he died, I think we all assumed, without saying so, that I would take over that role, and for a while I did. And it was too much, and I started to pull back, and I had not explained to my daughter why, or how scared I also was, or how much I missed the version of family that had existed when he was in it. I called her. I got your text, I said when she picked up. Mom, I'm not calling to change my plans, I said. I need you to know that first. I'm staying at the cottage. That is not changing. I heard her exhale, but she didn't say anything. But I want to talk about what you said, about being scared. We talked for an hour and a half. It was the longest real conversation we'd had in 2 years. We talked about her father. We talked about how grief does strange things to the people left behind, how it can look like distance when it's really something else. I told her about the 3 weeks after Christmas last year, when I could not explain to anyone why I felt so hollowed out. She told me she had sat in her car and cried after dropping the kids at school more times than she could count in the past year, because she missed her dad and she didn't know what to do with that. By the end of the call, we were both crying. It was the kind of crying that feels like relief more than sadness. "I still have to figure out Christmas," she said finally, half lying, half exhausted. "Yes, you do," I said. "That's not funny, Mom." "It's a little funny." She sighed. "Can we come to the cottage after the 27th? With the kids?" "I already told you that." "Yes, bring the kids." "I'll make waffles!" "Okay," she said quietly. "Now I need to tell you about what happened on December 23rd. I had been at the cottage 4 days. I had read 2 books. I had walked the frozen shoreline every morning in my husband's old parka, the one that still has a crumpled gas station receipt in the left pocket from somewhere in 2019 that I have never been able to make myself throw out. I had drunk the scotch responsibly and eaten clementines sitting by the fire and slept 9 hours a night. I was, for the first time in 4 years, actually resting. That morning I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. But something, some instinct, made me pick up. It was a man named Gerald. He was calling from a law office in Toronto. He introduced himself and told me he was following up on a matter relating to a document that my son-in-law had submitted to his office. I sat down very slowly on the arm of the couch. "What document?" I said. He explained, carefully and in the particular flat way that lawyers have when they are delivering news they know will be unwelcome. That a document had been submitted to his office representing that the cottage property in Muskoka had been offered as collateral for a private loan of $60,000. The document required a signature and acknowledgement from the registered owner. My name was on the ownership. The document had my name pre-filled on the signature line. I had not signed anything. I had not agreed to anything. I had not known about any loan. I said, very quietly. "Who submitted this document?" Gerald told me. I already knew, because there was only one person it could have been. I won't walk you through every detail of the hours that followed, because some of it involves legal matters that aren't fully resolved, and some of it I am still processing in ways that don't have tidy words yet. What I will tell you is this. Trevor had been having financial difficulties for approximately 18 months that he had not disclosed to my daughter. There was a business venture, a franchise investment, that had gone very badly. He had borrowed against what he could. He needed more. And at some point, in some conversation, I am still trying to fully reconstruct, he had told someone, the lender, or perhaps a broker, that his mother-in-law's cottage would be made available as collateral, as though it were already arranged, as though the only remaining step was paperwork. I called my own lawyer in Oakville before noon. She is a woman I have used for 20 years. Dry-humored and precise, and when I explained the situation, she said, "Eleanor, that document is not worth the paper it's printed on without your signature. You are the registered owner. You have done nothing wrong. Don't sign anything, don't agree to anything, and send me everything they sent you." I sent her everything. Then I called my daughter. That was the hardest call I have ever made. Not because I was angry, though I was, but because I was about to change the shape of my daughter's life with information she didn't have, and I couldn't protect her from it. She answered on the second ring. "Adele," I said, "I need you to sit down. I am not going to tell you about that conversation in detail. Some things belong only to the people who lived them. What I will tell you is that my daughter did not know. I believed her then, and I believe her now." The shock in her voice was not the shock of someone caught. It was the shock of someone for whom the floor has just disappeared. What I will tell you is that she asked me, in a voice that was barely above a whisper, "How long have you known about this?" And I said, "Since this morning." And she said, "That's why he wanted you to come back for Christmas." Not a question, A realization, arriving in real time on the phone while I listened. The Christmas dinner. The 28 people. The pressure to come home, to be in the house, to be accessible, to be manageable. I don't know at exactly what point the plan to forge. And I am going to use that word, because my lawyer used it and it is accurate. My signature on that document was formed. I don't know if the Christmas dinner was part of that plan deliberately, or if it was simply a convenient coincidence. What I do know is that I was supposed to be home, surrounded by family, overwhelmed, under social pressure, and somewhere in that chaos, a document was supposed to end up in front of me. Instead, I was at a cottage in Muskoka, eating clementines and reading. I will not draw out the legal details for you. They are ongoing and not my story to tell in full. What I can tell you is that the cottage is still mine. It is registered in my name and has been since my husband's parents left it to us. And before his father passed, I had the quiet wisdom, at the suggestion of a friend who had been through something similar, to have the ownership transferred into a family trust that named my 2 daughters as beneficiaries. Not Trevor, my daughters. My lawyer had helped me set that up 18 months ago, which means even if I had signed that document, which I did not, it would have been legally void. You cannot use as collateral a property you do not solely own. Trevor did not know about the trust. He thought he knew exactly what he was dealing with. He was wrong. Adele came to the cottage on the 26th. She came alone. She drove up in the early afternoon, and I saw her car coming down the lane before she got to the door, and I put the kettle on. She sat at the kitchen table, and we drank tea, and she cried, and I let her. I didn't try to fix it or make it smaller. Some things are the size they are. The kids came on the 28th, with Petra, who had flew in from Vancouver the moment I called her and told her what had happened. We had waffles, as promised. We built a fire. We walked out on the frozen part of the lake, the 4 of us and the 2 grandchildren, the oldest one, he is 9, asked me if we could come back in the summer to swim. Yes, I said. We can. Every summer, as many as you want. He took my hand and we walked back to the cottage, and I thought about the receipt in the pocket of the parka and the turkey stuffing I can't quite get right, and 8 weeks from diagnosis to gone, and all the Christmases that look different now than they did before. I kept the cottage. I kept my daughters. I kept my grandchildren. Some seasons, that is everything.